Hi folks, and welcome to Gersnet, the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where all your content is absolutely free, coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. My name's Alec Anderson, and I'll be your host this evening, Friday the 6th of October 2023, as we take not so much a wee look back at last night. I'll do a quick preview of this weekend as rubber faces in the arid dirt of two straight Rangers defeats in two different competitions under two different management teams. We'll wonder how the hell we're going to survive a trip to Paisley on Sunday and seek to find solace in the list of potential new Rangers managers, all infused with a level of scatter-blaming and head-on-a-plate demanding that would put Herod and his new missus to shame. This is episode 290 of the Gersnet Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Rangers might have lost 5 games by their first fixture of October, but we're up to 6.6 thousand subscribers on our YouTube channel, and it's a huge consolation to know so many of you are coming here to share your woes and listen to ours. Quite frankly, it's a lovely community we've got going here. We're going out live on our YouTube channel right now, but this pod will be available to watch and or listen to at any time on YouTube, and from tomorrow it should be available on Acast, iTunes, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, and all decent and reputable pod providers. If you're joining us live, you can give us a wee bit of feedback if you like on the live YouTube comment section. Also, don't forget, we've got a swish new updated gersnet.co.uk website, complete with a friendly discussion forum and a wealth of articles from our contributors, including the highly impressive history archive. Please hit the thumbs up icon, and if you could be so kind, let your pals know that we're here. I want to get us up to 6,660 subscribers, so we look nice and satanic, on YouTube. Before I bring in my quietly seething guest, I'll mention our sponsors. Forrest Precision Engineering, established in 1983, is a leading precision engineering and special purpose machinery manufacturer. Based in Glasgow, their services in precision engineering are available to companies all over Scotland and throughout the UK. They're leading manufacturers of special purpose machinery for a range of applications. Their website is at forrestprecisionengineering.com. They're big friends of Rangers, and they've got a stunning new hospitality area within the Ibrox main stand. For information on how to book the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, a unique and intimate space, email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. And so to my guest, I don't know about you folks, but before we go off on an international break, I can assure you that yes, sir, I can Dougie. I can Dougie, woogie, all pod long. Dougie. How you doing, mate? I mean, I'm just thinking that you and I we're playing the fives. Even though you led me a merry dance most of the time we're playing fives, I could still have done a better job than most of the players we had in the park last night. How are you coping with this, mate?
I'm not, to be perfectly honest. I've been a miserable bastard for the last 24 hours. If only Rangers were as well organised as that introduction, Alex. I think you mentioned the community within Gersnet, looking at the comments. I think we're going to be a support group tonight as we all try and support each other through this very, very difficult time to be a Rangers supporter.
It's just one big gestalt session. We're all just sitting in the round, just letting it all out, because that's the only way to get through this, I think, right now, mate. And the thing is, we haven't had you on the pod since Michael Beale left the cup, and as a stalwart of Gersnet, we really need to get your thoughts, your opinion in that seminal moment for the club. But typical of the kind of vortex that the team seems to be plummeting down at the moment. Before you even get to review the Beale disaster, I'll talk about the appointment of Stephen Davis as interim. Another crisis takes over with one of our worst ever European results last night, just simply one of our worst results of all time, full stop. I don't know if it's a Bromley boy, Beale, he's not a Cockney, but last night it felt like his kind of final revenge and his sacking with Rangers was to just give it to us right up the Aris. Aris Limassol. Last week's flagship pod after the 3-1 defeat to Aberdeen, when events kind of overtook that. There's little point in analysing the game in too much detail, because it demands a much wider discussion, the fallout from it. But playing devil's advocate, it was a terrible pitch. It's used by 3 different home clubs, that pitch in Limassol. We had our manager obviously sacked just days previously. The players have got a teammate suddenly taken over. And there's a swathe of kind of first team injuries. Was there any excusing any part of that performance last night, mate?
No, none, absolutely none. You just said there, Alex, around one of our worst European nights of our very long and very proud history. Last night, as it was getting towards the end of the game, I was thinking back to progress in the Ederkorn, and for me that was the worst. I probably wasn't surprised to hear today that Aris Limassol are 20 places below progress in the Ederkorn. And for so many different reasons, I think last night was worse. I think the rankings speak for themselves. They are a lower ranked team than Aris. I've got a mate that actually lives in Limassol, and he's been lauding it over me since last night. But I think there's very different circumstances between this game against Aris versus Progress. I don't want to go down the 2012 route, for example, but when we played Progress, we were still a team in recovery. You look at that squad that we were building; it was a shambles. When you look at the lack of balance within that team. 2 years ago, we were in a European Cup final. 3 years ago, we won the league. To have regressed to the level that we're at last night, where my mate who lives in Limassol was saying that they're a pub team. He's a Portsmouth fan and he's calling them a pub team. We were the ones that looked like the pub team last night, and that's the thing that really, really angers me. I think there's a lot of fingers to point at right now, Alex. You could literally point a finger towards Govan right now and it would land on someone and it would be the right finger to point at right now. But what a mess Michael Beale has left us in. I'd go as far as saying he has set us back years with this summer. Years. It looked also promising when he took over and you had the January transfer window. Nico Raskin and Todd Cantwell got us excited in terms of what type of calibre of player Michael Beale was identifying. It was exciting because you were looking at these two young players with fantastic profiles. Where have we gone so wrong in the summer? We've all spoken about it through the podcast around the standard of signing. It was just laid bare last night. There's a couple of things that you can call out. You can call out the number of games that we've been playing recently. I don't know what it's at these days, but we're averaging a game every 2-3 days. There's a lot of games. You can point the fingers at the injury list. At the moment, there's obviously a lot of key players missing. Those are huge contributing factors to the reason why our manager's lost his job. You can point the finger at the pitch, the surface, but we're Glasgow Rangers and they're Aris Limassol. That team that was out there, they should be good enough to beat a team from Cyprus first and foremost. But where my frustration lies is when you're looking at that team and you're looking at the weak links of that team, there are new signings. You're looking at that front line. Lammers and Dessers in particular were just unbelievably poor. They're the players that we've identified to create this rebuild, the largest rebuild in recent history that we've been promised. And the players that have been brought in look far less, they're far less capable than the players that have left. And I understand why there's a lot of fingers being pointed at the guys that have been here for a number of years because, you look at James Tavernier, Connor Goldson and John Lundstrom in particular last night. I think their effort was a disgrace to the support.
Lundstrom at that, the second goal, I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, you can point fingers at Goldson for the first goal as well. How he's let his man go away. Totally. Lundstrom with the half-arsed effort to get back and put a tackle in. Really substandard. Lundstrom's been one of our best players the past month. And that's the thing that just really angers me is how can you go from being one of the best players to put in that level of performance? And we were just talking beforehand about Stephen Davis is a club legend. He is a deserving Hall of Famer. And last night, the players just spat in his face. They spat in his face, they spat in the face of every single Rangers fan. Grant, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, travelled to Limassol. He went to the game. He was telling us earlier on around some of the routes that Rangers fans had took and the money that it cost to get to Cyprus. Guys flying from Glasgow to London, London to Malta, Malta to Cyprus. These weird and wonderful routes. I see on Twitter tonight when I was coming home on the train from work, guys that were stuck in foreign countries because their connecting flights had been delayed or cancelled. And, these guys have put in hard cash to be there. They've put in their well-deserved earnings from work. They've taken holidays. They've left their families behind. They've made an effort to be there. And that performance just disrespected every single Rangers fan. I could sit here all night about about how disappointed I am and how angry I am. And a lot of fingers get pointed at the players on that pitch because they were substandard. It goes further than Michael Beale's identification of players for me, though, Alex. We gave the keys to Ibrox to a novice rookie manager. I said in a previous podcast about our lack of infrastructure above the manager, and I've spoken about the fact that I can't believe James Bisgrove doesn't feel the need to replace Ross Wilson. Now, everyone knows the failings of Ross Wilson, but given Michael Beale the freedom to do what he wanted, just feels like the biggest mistake that we've made in years. And I look at it in terms of what is our system? What is our strategy right now? Because we'll come on to the names in the frame, for example, but Stephen Davis came in last night and it looked like he was going with wingers, right? So Michael Beale started to go back towards a 4-2-3-1 after recruiting for a 4-4-2 with the inverted box midfield. We eventually went with wingers. But the issue that I've got with that is Stephen Davis can only piss with the cock that he's got. You know, we had to start Scott Wright last night in a European game. Scott Wright, who we touted out all summer for £500,000 and didn't get any bites from English championships, all of a sudden is starting in a European game for Rangers. And I think that's systemic of the lack of balance in our squad right now. Seaman and Scott Wright were our only fit wingers. You know, Stephen Davis has came in straight away and he's looked at Lammers, for example, and he's thought he doesn't have the pace to play out wide. I just think our team is so imbalanced, but we've allowed it to be imbalanced because one of the things when we brought in Ross Wilson was he was always going to create this identity. This is a Rangers way of playing football, so that if a manager fails, a new manager comes in, we've got the Rangers identity. And I thought that was going to be a 4-3-3 where you get rid of Michael Beale and you bring in a new manager, and that new manager inherits a team of players that suit that formation. A new manager comes in and wants to play his style of football. A magic wand couldn't get a better tune out of these players right now, and that's the issue that I've got right now about bringing in a new manager. It's badly needed. I think last night probably sped up the decision making amongst the board, but the new manager, whoever he is that comes in, is going to need miracles to happen with that squad right now, because it's genuinely the worst squad that I've seen in a decade. And I said it earlier on around the regression, how we've got to the position where that's one of the worst squads in a decade is just, it's a disgrace, Alex.
I'm not going to agree with you, mate, on the spat in their face kind of thing. I'm not trying to follow it. I feel as if, I'm like, I don't think the players would be thinking about it to that level. But maybe that's the problem. There's not a lack of consideration, whatever, for the fans that have made that journey. And something we have to remember: the fans obviously they volunteer to do, but they're looking for. Like, you're quite right in what you're saying. They're wanting the players they're volunteering to do it because they think the players are going to respect their effort in getting there, and they're going to put that effort. And the one thing I would say, I couldn't help thinking, particularly because Connor Goldson was coming out today. Or I saw the interviews today where he's doing the same thing he did after that League Cup semi-final against Hibs, less than 2 years ago, where he's trying to apologise and then he's realising apologising sounds even more pathetic and he's going to get that shoved down his throat. So he's trying to kind of not apologise and apologise for not apologizing. He's so scared of sounding like a shirker, and he knows people are going to say, we don't care about apologies, where's the performance? And he tries to... It's almost kind of meta-textual. He's trying to observe himself, and I think it's genuinely meant. The big man was ranked last night. He was absolutely terrible. That first goal was just pathetic. I mean, it was such a sucker punch after what Aberdeen had done to us last Saturday. I feel as if when you've got somebody like Connor Goldson, who, like we keep saying, has been a European final, led as much as anybody else to a European final just 18 months ago, for him to have got there... The last time we had a caretaker management team was that League Cup semi-final, and that was between Steven Gerrard leaving because Aston Villa wanted him, because a mega club with mega money came in and took him away. And between Giovanni Van Bronckhorst taking over and beating Sparta Prague in his first game to get us into the next round. It was just right slap bang in the middle of that. We put in this awful performance. And Goldson's chat that day, I was kind of stuck up from after it. Got a lot of criticism for it, but I think it came from a place where he wanted the players to take on the responsibility from, like David McCallum and all that. Basically, the kind of youth team and academy guys who'd come in just to take over the management team. And he was like, we were a disgrace today. You'd look Scott Arfield and Alan McGregor, total blue noses in the team that day as well. Proper men, proper leaders. But we still were 3-0 down after half an hour to Hibs. And I wonder if what's happened last night is just that, we're bad enough already, as you say, this season. But it's like Stephen Davis coming in actually confuses the issue. They get emotional in their heads, but their instincts are saying, they're like, we need to do this for Davo. Our teammate, this looks like we could be letting them down. We need to do this. And also, but instinctively, they're thinking, he's not going to be the manager. He's not the guy I need to impress. So they end up getting kind of confused before they're even on the park. And it leads to that kind of horrific performance last night. Is it more like a kind of systemic thing where if there's for example, a director of football in there, they know that somebody who's got a big say in whether they're in the team or not is not just watching them in terms of making sure they're performing, but also taking the pressure off the players. So the minute I start hearing players saying, we're going to do it for such and such, I think, no, you're not going to be able to. Players just need to be bollocks scared of the manager or have such respect for him that they don't even have to think about who they're doing it for. They just go out there and they do it, And I don't know if this is part of, as I say, a systemic failure where we don't actually have a director of football in there, and maybe taking that result in isolation, just the kind of thing that happens when you've got a caretaker management team.
I think it sums up the current group of players, Alex. I know we don't want to go and bash them too much, right? But
no, go for it, mate. Go for it. They deserve it after that last night.
I just think there's a lack of leadership within the first team squad and a lack of character and fight. Could you imagine, personal pride here, right? Could you imagine you had players like Barry Ferguson or Richard Gough or these kind of natural winners in a squad where the manager leaves, but you're up against a minnow side from Europe and a European tie, putting in the level of performance that some of our players did last night. And you spoke about defending Connor Goldson after the Hibs final. I did as well. I actually thought his comments were taken out of context, but they were from a place of genuine care. And I'll be honest, I thought last night as well, he was in a no-win situation. Fans want blood, right? I don't know. Fans want to hear the players apologise. They want to hear the players suffer. But the minute they do apologise, the minute they do show that they're suffering, then they're shown as a weakness. And, no player who's going to stand in front of supporters, whether it be Connor Goldson in front of a camera or James Tavernier in front of the Union Bears, was going to come out with any kind of credit last night, because it's a time, Robert had said earlier on in the WhatsApp, it's a time to take your medicine. We've just put in a very bad performance against a team that we should be beating. We've just lost 2 games in a row. I don't even want to think about losing 3 in a row, but it's a time for us to just listen. It's a time to listen to the support. The players need to listen to the support, our frustrations, our concerns, and they need to take it in the chin, because it's those players that have let us down. And whilst there's a lot of finger pointing right now, and whilst we can point fingers at the Lammers and the Dessers, I'll be honest, my fingers last night were firmly pointed at Goldson, Tavernier and Lundstrom. And the reason for that being is that is our leadership group. And the similarities there between Hibs and Aris is, I don't think those players have showed that leadership on the pitch. And probably the first time I've been in this position, Alex, because I like Goldson and I like Tav. I've been Tav's biggest fan since he joined. I think he's been a great signing, and I did think he's a deserving Hall of Famer. That was the final straw for me last night, and I think it was probably the final straw for a lot of supporters last night. I think it was probably a huge moment for this current group of players, because I think they just lost. I think they just lost the faith of the support, and I think if you were to, I seen Frankie put a poll earlier on about man of the match, and it just summed it up that Ross McCausland was one of the 3 options as to how everyone else performed. But I think if you were to put a poll out right now around, do you think the time is right to get rid of the leadership team of this first team squad, I would be surprised if it was not unanimous that we need to move them on now.
I'm more in the position. I'm the same as yourself, a huge fan of Tav, and I think he gets so much abuse that it almost kind of radicalises you into supporting him really vigorously. I've not really had a problem with that. I think his stats speak for himself, and I can hear people saying, "Well, his defending speaks for itself," and what have you. But he's going to be 32 this month. I don't know. People are saying he's a really poor season, but I think the whole squad, as we're saying, is a really poor season. And I think
these guys, Alex, he's dropped the same as everyone else.
Sorry, mate?
He has. I was going to say that they're good players when we're playing well. See, when we are not playing well, they just look really, really poor. James Tavernier has had his poorest form for a number of years. I think that's because he's playing in a poor team right now. I don't think it's any coincidence if we're a firing, performing team that you get the best out of guys like James Tavernier. And I mentioned before the game, Ronald de Boer had said that about Dessers. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah.
Yes, aye.
Yeah. Ronald de Boer had said that about Dessers. Ronald de Boer, when we were linked with Dessers, said that Dessers is a complete confidence player. When Dessers' confidence is low, he's going to look like a non-league player, and you're going to be thinking, who is this guy playing for this football club? But he's a player that when he's got confidence and he's on form, you're going to be sitting there going, whoa, where's this guy been this whole time? And I just think there's too many players like that in the Rangers team right now that you can't be like that at Rangers. You need to be able to be prepared to roll up your sleeves and fight. And I hate to go down this route, right? But I seen a comment last night, and I think it resonates with me. I don't think last night happens if you've got more Rangers fans in that 11, and I think that's a big issue for me. Is I think the lack of natural, born a Rangers fan, you'll die a Rangers fan in that team. I think the lack of real Rangers men in that team last night showed.
The reason he thought I couldn't hear you is because I'm screwing my face because there's stuff I'm disagreeing with you, mate. I don't know about that.
Disagree away.
I'm talking about me being radicalised when it comes to Tav, and I think he is. I think he gets us going. I think when like for example, last season we get beat 3-2 at Parkhead, he scores both our goals. I think he does step up when we're losing in a way that that people maybe don't appreciate as much as possible. We're talking about Barry Ferguson, but it never happened with Barry. Barry single-handedly get rid of Paul Le Guen and ends up. I saw him, the caretaker manager Ian Durrant, January 2007. We go to. It's basically Barry Ferguson running the team with Ian Durrant on the bench in the technical area, and we go to Dunfermline's up at the game at East End Park, who hadn't won a game all season, and we're 3-0 down in the Scottish Cup. We go 3-2, and we end up in a European final 16 months later. I guess this crazy thing of when things look absolutely terrible. Next thing Barry's leading as a European Cup final, and Walter had a word with him as well. I think, I could be really pedantic. John Gregg, greatest ever Ranger, a Hearts fan as a kid and all that. I think it's about Rangers standard, the Rangers class. Instead of having, and how do you learn that except being brought up a Rangers support? That's the best way to learn that. You're absolutely right. But I can't let anybody off of that performance. Everybody, including Tav, are totally on their own. They have to defend themselves. And I thought that just the reaction, it's an easy thing to say, but when John Lundstrom was a quick shot of John Lundstrom's face after he had given the ball directly to an Aris player who he had a start on in terms of catching him, and then just couldn't catch the guy and just watched him walking it, across to his pal who got in front of Davis to walk it into the back of the net. There was a look in Lundstrom's face of, oh well, what are you going to do? Just kind of, all right. There was no, oh Christ. I don't mind. It's almost like we want to see them suffering, but then you would think, well, get yourself back together. Why, you need to kind of stand up to this. So I don't know. I can't second guess what's going on with the players just now. But there is this thing. We've started seeing the comments, and social media is never a great place to judge how the Rangers support in general is feeling. But even Alfredo Morelos, he wouldn't have done it. We should have had Alfie instead of Ryan Kent, who everybody wanted rid of last season. Kent wouldn't have done that. We could have got him in the team and all that. Is there any danger that we might overreact? I'm ready to bin them all last night as well. Any danger that we might overreact? I think you're exactly right what you're saying, because I think it was the new players. Let's see, Seema and Dessers and all that. They were trying their heart out. Dessers and Lammers as well, really trying, but just not good enough. Whereas I think the guys who are good enough looked as if they weren't trying, but I find that difficult to believe that they weren't trying,
That's where you can talk yourself round in circles, though, isn't it? You talked about that St Mirren game. No, but James Tavernier single-handedly took us to European final, in my eyes. He dragged us through some games. And you go back to that Barry Ferguson team, and they then got to Manchester in the final. That's the bit for me, Alex, is we were chatting about this last night in a separate WhatsApp chat. You look across Europe, there was a whole bunch of failed Rangers rejects playing across Europe this week. You had Cardozo playing for Porto against Bayern Munich. Itten scored for Young Boys. And there was another centre-back. Who was the other centre-back that was playing last night? There was another failed player playing. And I think that's the point, is there's all these players that are deemed not good enough for Rangers, but somebody else, it was Hollander, sorry, it wasn't that he was playing in Europe, it was a Hollander who's been called up to the Sweden squad. He has played 4 games in a row. I mean, when was the last time that Hollander played 4 games in a row? But it's these guys seem to leave Rangers and then you suddenly get a tune out of them. And you just wonder how much of it is mental. I was just saying beforehand about the team lineup. For example, Raskin completely out the blue travels, in fact, Raskin and Roof travel to Cyprus. Completely out of nowhere, these guys travel. You just wonder how much of it is genuine injuries or how much of it is mental. They don't want to fight for the manager that's there. And I think that's the point that I was going to go to in terms of, we could talk ourselves around in circles here, right? What we need is leadership from the very top of Rangers Football Club right now. We need somebody to come out and say, we have made a massive balls up. We're going to fix the situation. This is how we are going to fix the situation. This is our blueprint, how we're going to fix the situation and not allow us to get into this mess again. Let's unveil the manager. Let's allow the manager to tell us how he's going to turn it around. But these guys that we are sitting criticising, James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, John Lundstrom, 24 months ago, John Lundstrom was the best on earth. And I've just spoken about these guys that have all left us. Could a different manager, and I keep talking myself around it just now, right? Because could a different manager come in and get a tune from these guys that we are sitting here right now absolutely raging because of how poor they were and how poor they've been this season. But we've seen the reaction when Gio came in after the Hibs game. That same team that got beat against Hibs then got us to a Europa League final. And the biggest difference between Seville and Manchester is Manchester, we were defending for our lives. It was a tactical masterclass from Walter Smith. But we weren't blowing teams away. I'll never say we were lucky to get to a final, because you're never lucky getting to a final, but we fought to get to the final. Whereas, see the Europa League final, we deserved to be in the final. And we were probably a tap-in away from Ryan Kent, or a missed penalty away from Aaron Ramsey from actually lifting a European trophy with this majority same core group of players. And that's where I just keep on going round in circles just now around, yes, they deserve to be criticised. They deserve to be slaughtered by the supporters. I seen they landed in Glasgow, and I'm surprised I didn't see any footage from Glasgow Airport this afternoon of fans arriving in numbers to show their frustration. I expect that we're going to get that on Sunday against St Mirren. I think this international break's coming at a brilliant time, Alex, because it allows us as supporters to vent and show our frustration away from the players. The players can go away and they can regroup, they can get their heads together. But I tell you what, we need to make a very quick decision on bringing in a new manager, and hopefully that international break is used to bring in a new manager and for him to come in and decide. Look at these. Michael Beale kept going on about looking at players in the eyes. Let's look at the guys in the eyes again and look at who actually wants to stay and fight for Rangers Football Club. Because when you were looking at guys like James Tavernier and his pre-match press conference, and then you look at guys like Connor Goldson, John Lundstrom's body language in the game, are they here for the fight? Are they going to literally fight? Are they going to bleed for this football club and show how much they want to be here? That's going to be a big call from the manager who stays and who goes.
And talking of that manager, Gersnet regular and ever reliable source Chris Jack of the Rangers Reviews tonight tweeted just about 7:30, Rangers will hold final stage interviews with managerial candidates next week. Frank Lampard will not be involved in that process, and I think you and I both want to pass on our condolences to Craig Ray, a massive Frank Lampard fan, massive Chelsea fanboy. So that's not going to happen, according to Chris. And Chris he's really wrong with this kind of stuff. is absolutely vital we get a replacement in during the international break, Dougie. And are you looking for a long-term gaffer or a more kind of experienced interim to take a placehold to the end of the season while we look like, for example, maybe get a director of football in to properly scout for the next permanent manager? What do you? I mean, it's amazing. This is 2 seasons in a row. The international break after St Mirren away. We're thinking there's going to be a different manager when we come back. But what are you looking for over this international period in terms of the manager search?
Do you know, that's a good point though, Alex. You know, me and my dad always go on about the Albert Einstein quote about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different response. That's how I feel right now about if we go and appoint a different manager, you've got the same players there, you've got the same recruitment team picking the players and buying the players. Are we really going to be expecting anything different just from a new manager coming in? I'm not sure. Big changes are required to turn this around. I think we absolutely need to bring in a new manager because I think when you have an interim manager in there, I think this is a danger. You could go down the interim route between now and the end of the season and bring in an experienced head. I just don't think these players buy into an interim managers. We've witnessed, you know, we've spoken about Hibs, we've spoken about last night here with Stephen Davis and was it David McCallum that covered Hibs. We've seen it so many times, even Graham Murphy before that, where the interim manager doesn't work. You know, you could go down the route of, you know, I've seen some really out there ones, the guys like Neil Warnock in there. I don't think we should go down that route. If I'm honest, I think, I mean, do you bring in a director of football and then you wait to see, you know, what they implement in the club and then identify their man? You know, one thing that's on the table right now, Alex, is that you kill both birds with one stone. You know, one of the names in the frame right now is Philippe Clement from Belgium. Philippe Clement is just fresh from Monaco, where he worked alongside, was it Paul Mitchell, who was the director of football at Monaco. We actually have apparently spoken to Paul Mitchell in the past around coming to Rangers as director of football.
That'd be, you know, before he was at Monaco.
I believe it was, yeah. I think it was when we appointed Ross Wilson, and he was one of the names in the frame. So you've got an opportunity right now where a director of football is out of a job, who we have spoken to in the past, and I believe we were interested in Paul Mitchell, but he decided to go abroad. You've got the opportunity there to bring in somebody who can implement that structure alongside a manager who is interested in the job apparently, and who has a very credible CV. He has a winning CV. You know, he's won the Belgium League. Is it the Jupiler League? Is it Belgium? Yeah, so he's won the Belgium League 3 seasons in a row with 2 teams. And if you look at Monaco, I read kind of stats on Monaco. He turned around a very poor Monaco side and got them into the Champions League, playing a very kind of familiar brand of football. There is an opportunity there where you kill both with one stone. You bring in that director of football who brings in a manager alongside him that he's worked with before and he trusts, and they complement each other. Out of all the names that are being put in front of us just now, that's the one that appeals to me most. And it appeals to me most if they come as a package. And that's the bit that I think appeals to me, because you've then got the infrastructure behind the scenes, and you've got Clement that can then, within the team, implement his style of football. But I've just seen Frankie's put out the poll, and there's other names in the frame. You know, Frank Lampard's been ruled out. In the last 24 hours, Oliver Glasner, who is a manager that's familiar to Rangers fans for all the wrong reasons, has came forward. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Glasner, but it's an interesting one in terms of, obviously he's one of many ex-Rangers, well, let's say ex-Rangers European final managers who wants to manage us, with Dick Advocaat being at Rangers then Zenit. It'd be the opposite way for Glasner. I don't know a lot about him, I don't know what his style is, etc. But when you get guys of that pedigree who have also won a European trophy putting their name in the hat, it gives me a bit of hope, because I'll be honest, when I watched that last night, I thought, what manager in their right sane mind is going to want to touch this group of players? It just looks like a poison chalice right now. So it's encouraging that you've still got guys of that quality, and hopefully that's what the interview process brings out, is that you're speaking to these guys around what is their style, how do they intend to implement it, and you can then get a feel for who's the right man for Rangers Football Club. Because we've seen it so many times. Paul Le Guen was this, European hot prospect manager when we appointed him, and he was really, really exciting from coming from Lyon to Rangers, and then he just bombed at Rangers. He got it so wrong, and that's where you can't just take somebody who's done it somewhere else and plump them into the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl with everything at Rangers and expect miracles. So it's important that we sit down with these guys. The last name in that frame is Kevin Muscat, and there's a lot to like about Kevin Muscat. There's a lot of question marks about Kevin Muscat. I hate to go down the route of he gets it, and I'll never say that a guy that played here for such a short period of time does get it, but he understands the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl, having been here before. He's a bastard. You just need to speak to listen to the ex-players. I think it's Peter Crouch that came out recently and made the comment about when Kevin Muscat said he was going to break your legs, you literally knew he was going to break your legs.
Borderline psychotic as a player. I mean, I can't say how that's changed as a manager, but...
Well, isn't it absolutely marvellous how he was borderline psychotic as a manager, where he was just this absolute nutter, but he plays beautiful football as a manager?
Aye.
It's bonkers how he's gone from kind of one extreme to the other. But the concern I've got for Muscat is he's taken over two jobs where the system has been implemented and the players have been purchased after Ange has gone in there and kind of imprinted his standards, and then Muscat's kind of taken it on the next stage. The big question mark over him for me is, can he go in when that is not in place and be the man to introduce it and then embed it? The only kind of job that he's had in Europe was in Belgium, and he failed miserably, and that's got to be the concern. So I think if truth be told, Alex, there's pros and cons to every single name in the frame. There's no obvious candidate. You look back at the Paul Le Guen era, and Walter Smith was back managing Scotland alongside Ali McCoist, and you just knew that was the right appointment to steady the ship. We were a mess at that point, we're a mess now. You need someone to come in and steady the ship. We don't have a Sir Walter to come in and save Rangers right now, so you're looking at somebody else who can do that. I'd be bringing in someone permanent, back to your question. Ideally, I'd be looking for someone experienced. All three of those names we've just mentioned are experienced. Looking for somebody that's got a winning pedigree. All three of those managers have got a winning pedigree, and I think that's what separates them from Frank Lampard. All of a sudden, we're looking at managers who win games of football, who win trophies, rather than sell jerseys. I think that was a concern around Frank Lampard, is that was the new CEO who came from a commercial background, looking at it from a commercial perspective. The guy that's implemented My Gers to set up the Australian friendly. Was he the right man to pick the Rangers manager who's going to come in? Thankfully, it looks like Lampard's out of the equation. So it's back to the three names, but it wouldn't surprise me if another one throws up in the next 24 hours or so. But I think we're going to see a fairly quick reaction. I think there was a soundbite around we're going to take our time and we're going to make the right decision. I think last night has sped things up. I do. So I expect a name in I expect a name in the hot seat. I expect somebody sitting in the hot seat during the international break. And I think, much like Michael Beale, dare I go back to Gio for a minute? I was a Gio fan. I think a lot of the podcasters on Gersnet threw our weight behind Gio at the point where Gio was under pressure. And I think one of the things for Gio is he was just dealt a really bad hand. And within that bad hand, there was a lot of players out injured. And it was unfortunate for Gio that a lot of these guys started to return from injury when Michael Beale came in. I think it was only the second or third time that allowed a manager to play Conor Goldson and Ben Davies, our first choice partnership, together. I think this international break, as I said, coming at the right time to allow supporters to regroup, the players to regroup. Hopefully, allow the new manager to come in. But the other big factor as well is hopefully it allows players who've been out injured to return, because you're looking at that possible starting 11 right now for St Mirren, and you look at the starting 11 against Aris. I'm not sure, looking at Aris last night, I'm not sure what else Stephen Davis could have done last night. There
was nothing. You weren't looking at that team and thinking, "Oh, you've had a nightmare there, Davo." It's like, what else is he going to do? And the formation as well, you know what I mean?
Definitely. So I think the lack of players is a big factor right now, and hopefully come international break, these guys will start to return to this and are ready for when the new manager's in place.
Yeah, and I had my own say on the managers, the managerial candidates on I did a preview pod for the RS game, so if you check that out, folks, and I'm basically just going through with my kind of verbose opinions on the ones Dougie's been talking about a bit more educatedly than myself. But Glasner, he wasn't. I didn't mention him. He hadn't kind of come to the fore at that point. And the only thing I'll say, it's pure bitchiness with me. I maintain that Eintracht Frankfurt only won that trophy because they crapped out of everything domestically that season. They get put out in the very first round of the German Cup that they were in by a third division side, and they finished mid-table. I don't think they'd won a match in the Bundesliga since March or something, when they played us, and they only managed to beat us in penalties. Listen, they beat Barcelona in the new camp. They put out Betis. They struggled against Betis in the latter stages of that tournament as well. But they're a great run. But I would have serious doubts about him from a purely insane, bitchy, just petulant point of view. You know, I've no idea about the man's career outside that season. I just was so angry because it was like, we've lost the European final to a team who crapped out domestically, and we've lost the league by just 4 points to a team who crapped out in terms of Europe and had the league rearranged. I'm still trying to get over that season, and then with last night falling hard upon it on St Mirren, Dougie. But I mean, there's quite a few folk have had that feeling of no looking forward to going to Paisley. Sorry, folk for Renfrewshire, but amid all the kind of the backlash and horror last Saturday's no show against Aberdeen, I totally failed to look at the league table. You know, didn't really care about the league table after that debacle last week. But on Sunday, when the news broke that Michael Beale had been sacked, I flick on Sky Sports News, and of course they've got the league table up on the screen. I was actually shocked to discover we were third. I didn't see how a team that lost 3 out of 7 league games could be as high as third. You know, it says a lot for Scottish football, but of course now smart arse Alec were away to the team in second. Kind of part of me felt kind of one consolation with Beale sacking was it became so unavoidable so quickly. There was no doubt by the end of September. There was no doubt that he had to go. But we're now in a situation where if we slip up, I think there was a lot of talk about, well, we're still in the 4 competitions, even though we're already 7 points behind Celtic and we don't play in the Scottish Cup until January anyway. But now suddenly it's like, if we slip up at Paisley against Stephen Robinson, St Mirren are on form just now. They've not lost a game in the league this season. They're every bit as good as Aris Limassol as far as I can see. Is that really it? Are we now getting a situation where it's over? If we don't win on Sunday, we could be 9-10 points behind them early October.
Do you know, I was looking at the league earlier on as well, because I was drawn to it by one of my mates who happened to talk about the 2 teams that have beaten us so far, Alex. Aye. So Kilmarnock beat us. It was their only win of the season so far. Aberdeen beat us, and it's only one of their 2 wins in the season so far. And I think one, that shows you why we're third, is you get teams that are just inconsistent. They'll beat Rangers, but then they'll get defeated the next week against Ross County. But 2, it shows you how bad those defeats are. That we are getting beat against Kilmarnock, who it's our only victory of the season, and that's the worry. On Sunday, we are going to play against the on-form team outside the Old Firm, the team that deservedly sits second. I'm in Renfrewshire, unfortunately. These days, and a lot of the guys,
a lovely town, city. Sorry, a lovely place.
But a lot of the guys that I play football with now are St Mirren fans, and they are raving about this team. They're raving about the way that Stephen Robinson has them playing football. He's got them hard to beat, well set up. I think that's what you expect of some of these experienced managers in Scottish football. He recruited well in the summer. He went down the route of less is more. He signed less players, but of a higher quality, and that was his route. So he's got a small, tight squad that right now, whilst they're all fit and healthy, are performing very, very well. I'd love Stato to tell me when the last time was Rangers lost 3 games in a row. But sitting here, Alex, I can't give any confidence that we are going to come away with 3 points on Sunday. And that whole kind of glimmer of hope around us being in 4 competitions, I think we're out the league. I think come Sunday the league's done, and At this moment in time, a little bit of realism, we're in a fight for second place. That's how bad we have dropped right now. And I feel terrible saying that, and I'm sure I'll get lambasted for saying it.
We won the battle for third. We won the battle. Remember, we Motherwell at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago. That was a battle for third. We won that. I'm confident we can push on and secure our top 6 place. This season, And by the way, Derek McInnes, he stated at the end of last season, this is our next manager you're talking about potentially. He stated at the end of last season that his goal, the only failure they had last season at Robbie Park was not beating Rangers or Celtic. And this season, if you throw the League Cup into it, he has beaten Rangers and Celtic at Robbie Park and nobody else, I think. So that's concomitant with his ambitions there, Mr. McInnes. Talking of somebody who likes to pick a team that's not going to lose, Dougie, how do you think, what's Steve Davis going to do? Is this the cries for dump them all, the first teamers, pick the youth team? That's not going to happen, is it? How's he going? Is he going to go with the same setup as last night?
I think anyone who thinks an interim manager is going to come in and make, wholesale big decisions is going to be disappointed. I think Stephen Davis, I've seen Frankie's team, and I think it's probably how everyone feels, is rip up that back four and start an entirely different back four. James Tavernier and Connor Goldson will start on Sunday. That's the reality of it. An interim manager is not going to come in and make a big call like that. That's what the new manager, when he is in place, is going to be paid to do. He's going to be the one paid to make those decisions. Stephen Davis's job as interim manager is to see us through that interim period, not make any decisions that's going to have long-term impacts. The other huge factor in it here, and I know the first team is the priority, but Rangers B are playing on Saturday against Monaco B.
That's true.
So, I've seen McCausland's in, and Lovelace is in Frankie's possible starting 11. I'd be surprised if you see any of these guys. I mean, they've got to be involved in the squad. The squad's that depleted right now. There's got to be some guys involved in the squad. But for me, Stephen Davis won't make any huge decisions because, he's here to kind of steady the ship, not rock the boat. So for that reason, I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed supporters when that team sheet comes out, and you can already see the wee pictures with the red circles and the red arrows right across the Connor Goldson's, James Tavernier's, John Lundstrom's. The name that I've actually not mentioned so far and I've seen in the comments is Borna Barisic as well. But I do think of all the players, Borna Barisic will not start on Sunday because unlike the others where they probably hold that jersey right now, I think it's 50-50 right now between Borna and Ridvan. And Borna did absolutely nothing midweek to suggest that he keeps that jersey. So I think you'll see one change in that back four, and I'd be surprised if there's any more.
Aye, I think we should get along and watch the youths against Monaco, and we can suss out just what kind of youth development programme Clement and Mitchell put in place, and if we should be barracking them before they've even arrived as our director of football and manager. Dougie, absolutely different classmate. Thanks so much. Sorry, folks, we've run on a bit longer than usual there, but I think circumstances like what we have experienced over the last 5 or 6 days demand a bit more chat. And I want to thank Dougie in particular for having the guts to face up and get into it. It's really difficult times for Rangers, and it's good to have guys like Dougie to come on and give us his forthright opinions, and very entertaining they were too. Thanks very much to you as well, folks, for joining us. It makes a massive difference, especially at times like this. I'll have a wee post-match reaction pod late Sunday lunchtime, hopefully reporting a victory for Rangers at Paisley. Fingers crossed for that one. And on Sunday's flagship show at 9:30, live on YouTube, we'll have Brian in the hot seat with Ian and John to give us their opinions on what's happened at Paisley during the day and what's happening at Rangers in general right now. So thanks very much, Dougie. Thanks, listeners, and good night, everybody.